Let's get corrupted. What is up, everybody? It's your boy Joe with Meteoric Serpents coming back at you for another episode of the Colubrid Corruption Podcast. Guys, another week. What is going on? I hope you're all doing super well tonight. And whenever you're listening to this, hope you're doing well. Tonight is episode number 28. We brought on Riley from Riley's Reptiles. Really excited to talk to him. He's a, super passionate reptile guy, very present on social media. I was listening to another podcast he was on and it popped into my head. I was like, oh, he works with some Colubrids. I was like, let's have Riley on. So, excited to have him here today. Going to be a fun time. As always, guys, let's see. Yeah, so one, if you're enjoying the show, make sure you hit that like on today's video and all of them if you want to. Also, make sure you hit that subscribe button. We are growing closer and closer to 1,000 subscribers. Getting there. We're at like 907 as of the start of this episode. So getting up there and super excited to reach that milestone. I am considering doing some sort of animal giveaway. I have a few clutches happening, and 1,000's a pretty big milestone. So, fully considering that. But yeah, otherwise, all my other social medias are down here below. Make sure you go follow me on Instagram. That is where pretty much everything goes. I've definitely been a little bit slower on Instagram recently. Honestly, I just wasn't getting a lot of engagement on my posts. And I was just like, all right, but hopefully you use that. That's always where I post like reminders about the podcast, all that stuff. That all gets filtered over to Facebook as well. Again, hit that subscribe button today. Also, Morph Market is where I post all my available animals. So I only have a couple ball pythons on there, so you could go check that out. But I'll definitely be having some more stuff soon, especially with the Texas rats that just hatched. We're going to see as they grow a little bit and develop. Guys, also, just a reminder that we are on all podcasting platforms, especially like Apple Podcasts, Spotify, the big ones. I know there's a few others this gets blasted out to. Wherever you're listening, thank you very much. I definitely appreciate the YouTube views. It's cool, but if you listen elsewhere, definitely send me a message. Let me know how you like the show and whatnot. Otherwise, guys, you should all be supporting USARK Florida. Those are the organizations that fight for our rights to, keeping our reptiles. Super important. I'm a member of both, and you should be too. Also, I tell everyone every episode, if you're looking to diversify your animal's diet, you should definitely check out Blake's Exotic Feeders on Instagram. Blake is local to me. He breeds quail, and he has some budding quail available now for your very small animals, for hatchlings, which is really cool. I get to drive down there to them direct, pick up the frozen. All my Colubrids love it. They smash the quail. Really great food source, really great prices. Let them know that Joe from Meteoric Serpent sent you. Last but not least, first link in the description is the link to the Meteoric Serpents Patreon. If you want to give me some support, say thank you for the show, or you want to get some more behind the scenes of what I'm doing, learn a little bit, you get a little more of me. So that's what I'm going to be doing there. And if you're interested in joining, that's awesome. I appreciate that. Let's see who's here tonight, and then we'll bring our guest on. Eric's Morph Factory, what is up, my dude? Thanks for being here. Adam Ivory Colubrid Co., thanks for being here. Hey, Show, what is up? Thanks for being here. I forgot your first name. I'm so sorry. I don't usually do that. Tyler, what is up? Thanks for being here. Manuel, yes. What is up? Thanks for being here. Riley is the man. All right, guys, without further ado, let us bring on our guest for tonight and welcome Riley. What is up, man?
Hey, what's going on, Joe? How we doing?
Pretty good. How are you?
Good. It's my Friday. Work week is wrapped up and gonna roll into 2 days of deep cleaning everything in this room and taking care of everything here like I always do, and it just never
Yeah.
stops. It's just, now working for myself, on the clock for me now.
Yeah, for sure. And I know you got a bit of a busy season going on over there, so I know it's work, work, work.
Yeah, but it's the best time of season, best
Of course.
year, and it's the best workload to have. So I'm very blessed to have what workload I have this season for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, as we get started, and maybe you've been on a numerous amount of podcasts. You're very well respected in the hobby. But for anyone who does not know you, can you kind of give your background into how you got into reptiles and where that kind of led to where you are today?
Absolutely. So I'm sure familiar to most folks, my interest was just kind of innate from a kid. I've just always had an interest in it. My mom definitely fostered animals in the household from birth to, from whenever I moved out. And
Oh boy, hold on. I have
whoop,
no idea what happened.
all
I
good.
think my connection went bad.
Okay, hopefully it wasn't mine. Um, but anyway,
My bad.
yeah, all good, dude. My king snake would get out all the time because back then lids didn't have any like latches or anything. This was like late 90s, probably nine. Yeah, he got out all the time, scared my neighbor a couple times, but I was hooked, and mom couldn't leave me at home when my parents split up because I would play with matches and stupid things like that, skateboard off the roof, and um, yeah, just wild. And so she'd take us to the horse stables where she would spend, the afternoon taking care of her horse and doing whatever. And we were just in this fenced in sort of wilderness area. And how much trouble could we get in? Well, I would go catch snakes and toads and, you know, tromp around through muddy ravines and get completely filthy and just do whatever. And then I focused on skateboarding for like 17 years, and kind of like reptiles were just sort of like background noise. And then
Okay.
in college, I got the bug again. I rescued a water dragon off Craigslist that was like on death's door, just horribly emaciated. And um, for whatever reason, I was just inspired to bring this animal home and like learn everything about its natural history, build custom enclosure for it, and change it. And he ended up rebounding into an amazing, beautiful animal given the injuries and missing tail and all this stuff, and lived another 7.5 years with me. And at that point, I was in college. I was starting to realize like I can get stuff on my own, keep things at home, and I don't have to ask permission. And
Right.
and then shortly after that, I started volunteering at the Santa Barbara Zoo, which turned into a job, which turned into, working in zoos as a reptile keeper for almost a decade. It's where I met my wife, and we ended up moving up to Sacramento, where we are now, about 6 years ago.
Okay.
And yeah, just ever since I got into that stage, I started amassing reptiles at home and sort of learning about the industry, the hobby. I got to work alongside a local pet shop in Santa Barbara and vend all the shows in California for years on the weekends with that shop for, I don't know, 5, 6 years, maybe more. And I just injected into the entire thing, from the zoological world, the academic world, to the hobby side of everything, private keeping. I just ate up everything that I could. And yeah, long story short, after that, I'm managing GX3 Reptiles, which is a breeding facility and reptile shop in Sacramento that a gentleman a couple years older than me started as sort of like a side business because he loves reptiles and felt there was something missing in this location of the community, and felt he, with his other businesses, could leverage some of his business knowledge and created a shop. And it was kind of like right after we moved here, and I started working, helping him out part time. And then things kind of changed in my interests as things in the zoo up here in Sacramento were changing directions, and it just worked out timing wise. And so I've been managing the shop for almost 4 years now and handling all the breeding from colubrids, pythons, water monitors, frogs, tarantulas, uh, geckos, like everything we can, as
Awesome.
well as managing the shop and everything. So I live it, just now more in the private sector. So, but it's great,
Gotcha.
man. I'm fully immersed 24/7.
Yeah. No, that's awesome. And when you were on the zoo side, were you in like the reptile section type area, or were you doing other stuff?
Yeah, I started out as a volunteer and would volunteer an entire 8 hour day uh, with the bird team, and then a half day with the reptile team every week until I ended up getting hired on as an apprentice keeper for the reptile team. And then moved up into standard level keeper and was there for about 6 years. And so I did everything from venomous to alligators to piranhas. And being a small zoo, also got to help out with everything else from elephants to penguins and flamingos and giraffes, gorillas, all the good stuff. So, but yeah, full-time reptiles, and then just had little fun helping other teams and some other areas, and got to have some pretty amazing experiences.
Awesome. Awesome. Before we kind of dive into a little bit about your collection, what would you say is was like your favorite reptile species that you got to work with at the zoo? Perhaps one that you can't physically have. Like what?
Probably Chinese alligator.
Okay.
Just off first thought, because a lot of the other things, like theoretically, I could get legally. But I had a connection with the Chinese alligator that we had there at the time. She's since passed away, but um, she and I got along really well. She trusted me. She would chuff at me in the mornings and swim over to me in the pool. Um, I don't work there anymore. It's been long enough, but I would hand feed her sometimes.
Nice.
I could reach over and scratch her right on her nuchal cluster, and she would just kind of lift up and just kind of sit there and make these little grumbling noises. And then every season when she came out of winter, she would do all of her singing every morning, and I would just go in there and sit with her. She was just the best animal, and I just had a great bond with her. So yeah, she's probably my favorite.
That's super cool. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. All right, awesome. So, kind of starting to dive into your collection now. Obviously, you are very Morelia focused, um, but and we're gonna get to that for sure. But obviously, as the show is named, we need to talk about some colubrids, and I know you have some experience both personally and at the shop, which as you said, since you kind of keep and breed everything, like it almost is yours, but like you're managing it at least, so
Exactly.
they kind of count for your own personal experience. But let's kind of get into one, and I know you don't keep them anymore, but it's one I haven't really talked much about on this show, are the Madagascar giant hognoses.
Yeah, those guys are a lot of fun. When I started getting into those, that was probably around 2012 or 13. Um, and my inspiration for them came because at Santa Barbara Zoo, they actually had a confiscated, it was found in a field in some area in Central California, and it was all black
Really?
Madagascar hognose, melanistic, like there wasn't a hint of patterning in there, and a little bit of the white Oreo flaking on the belly. And she was the sweetest animal. Um, so the zoo had her forever. I think she's since passed, and she survived with like putrefied eggs in her for a while. She was super bound up, but still ate and everything, and just ended up being a phenomenal educational animal. So that inspired me to get some when there was this window when Madagascar kept like opening and then closing, and then opening and then closing as far as exports go.
Okay.
And so I ended up getting in a group of imported adults, 1.3. or 1.2, and started housing them individually. And they were fun, they were sassy, but like they were always on edge. And I had done so much research on other people keeping them and different things like that. And I can't remember what inspired me, but I was like, I'm keeping these things together. This is stupid. They're so pissed off all the time. They're so on edge all the time. As soon as I threw them all in an enclosure together, they bundled up together. They started eating
Okay.
better. They were more curious and happy to cruise. They weren't so startled by my presence. They would like come up to me. I put a camera in there to watch them at one point, and like they were out all day, all night, exploring, doing everything. I filmed breeding, I filmed everything. Like they bred a couple years in a row for me, and it was a very novel experience because everything I did was against what everything I had been taught. Like, don't get imports to start, don't learn with, this species that at the time everybody labeled as difficult to breed. And I kind of did it without trying. And I was like, these aren't hard. I produced a few of them and then sent the whole project to Owen McIntyre and Rogue Reptiles out in Pennsylvania because he started getting into them, and he produces like 3 clutches a year. But I moved the
Yeah.
project on because I'm limited on space, and I was like, okay, I did it. I banged out a few clutches. I kind of drummed up some hype and interest, and then at the same time, folks like Emily at Snake Discovery then started getting them and popularizing them on YouTube, and everybody else started getting on the import train and grabbing all of them. And I like wrote a paper for a magazine on them and all this stuff. And now all of a sudden there's information out there, and I feel like I broke the stigma of them being difficult to breed. And everyone's like, well, we're all getting all these imports. And next thing you know, I think, a lot of it had to do with the wave of Western hognose crave. Everybody's like, anything
Right.
hognose is at least worth exploring. And then you have this new like revelation. Oh, you can just keep them communally and just they do everything fine. You just keep them like sub Python temps, maybe a few degrees cooler, give them more space, give them subterranean options, lots of stuff to burrow, multiple hides, and whatever else you want to throw in there. They're pretty dang hardy. They'll eat eggs, they'll eat rodents, they'll eat, chicks and quail. And I mean, they're great. And it was such an epiphany for me. And then I was like, these are too easy. What's next? And so I moved them on. And so Owen
Okay.
has them now, and Owen's literally banging them out like they're going out of style. So it's
Awesome.
great to see. Yeah.
Very cool. All right. Awesome. And then you did mention sticking on that hognose train. I believe the Western hognose are a little bit more of a recent addition for you,
hmm
if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah. I added 2 pairs of them last year, and I wish I'd added them sooner. They're so much fun. What really gets me is the sort of wild type phenotype with the patches, the keeled scales. I mean, everything to me at first glance is just so rattlesnake like, and I love working with rattlesnakes. I worked a lot with Southern Pacifics, Northern Pacifics, Eastern Diamondbacks, a few other like I eyelash vipers and sidewinders and Catalina Island rattle, and just they're the best, man. And so to be able to bring home something that has a few of those little features and looks alike sort of thing, and they have some sassy attitude a little bit, and
Yeah.
they're just so cool, man. And then, as I get older and I start thinking about how much time I have, and I'm paying more attention to, um, trends in the hobby, because if I want a little side project, I don't want it to be something that just takes up space and I just amass animals here. I want it just something that
Right.
people are also interested in. So I was like, these are worth trying. And I was like, man, I get the hype now. I really do. Um, there's you can do like the subspecies or full species thing. You can get into like the Mexican hognose, the all different other ones, but the
Right.
morph stuff is arguably a guilty pleasure in this regard because they're small and manageable, so you can kind of like justify having a few of them. For me, as somebody who's more of a Python person, but like I understand why folks like uh JMG Reptiles just went full on, and that's what he
Yeah.
does. And I get it. I fully get it, man. It's super super cool. They're a great manageable size species. They're a lot of flavor and fun to them. They're a little spicy, a little hot, but that's
Yeah,
easy to manage. I got bit on the thumb
you did.
last year after I got, or maybe it was earlier this year, I don't remember, by my bigger girl. She latched on, and I took photos and like filmed it, and then I was like trying to get it off, and she was actually harder than everybody says to get off. You pull the nose up, but
Yeah,
my thumb and hand swelled up for sure for a few
yeah,
days. It was definitely swollen.
yeah. No, it's definitely an important thing, and it's something I've brought up on here a lot. And Zach and Clint just did an episode on
Yeah,
Colubrid and Colubrid where they went on a whole bunch of rants about a lot of things,
it was a
and this
great
was one of
episode.
them. Yeah, it
I
was.
love that. I love that
Yeah,
because I sell them in the shop once in a while. I'll keep like one or two, and it's always the first thing I talk to people about.
yeah,
Always.
yeah, and I think they're great, and I have hognose breeders that are friends of mine. But I do think that little piece is overlooked just a tiny bit because
Sure.
I think they can do more damage than the average person realizes. And saying, oh, it's just a hog nose is not really the answer to that, you know?
Yeah, yeah, and I think the common like thing that you hear people say is, "Oh, it's like a bee sting." Bro, I've been stung by bees and I've never had my hand swell up and like
Yeah.
itch for 24 hours like that. Like, and this was it was on the same thumb as my lace monitor bite, and it was right after it was pretty much fully healed.
Oh, shoot.
So I was like, great, this hurts extra.
Yeah.
But
Damn.
yeah, I don't think I'll ever uh be lax as far as, well, I'm never lax. Like I get bit by baby carpets and I just don't react because
Right.
it's part of my socialization method is to not react to their their freak outs and sort of work on that with them if there's one that's extra, nervous. So obviously I never want to get bit, but if it happens, it happens. With hognose, I'm like very quick to not, I'm not call like careless with them because I actually got bit by my Madagascar giant hogs one night. I was playing with them after dark and it was bad. I got bit on both hands and yo,
Really?
that like tingled and stung for like 15 minutes or so. And I was like, whoa, this is legit. I feel this. And I got them off instantly. Like there was no
Yeah.
latching on. It was like 15 minutes of like, there's something in there for sure.
Okay.
Um, so, take that. I would treat them like Boyga. Uh, I really would. Uh, yeah, that's just a big snake that loves to just grab, chomp, and dump. And by dump, I mean venom dump, just like boom.
Yeah.
But it's meant for small things. They eat a lot of reptile eggs, but they'll also take live stuff. So, but yeah, back to the westerns, man. And like Clint and Zach were saying, it's that 1 in 100 people have that sort of a reaction, and it's probably a spectrum. Somebody's reaction might be a legit reaction, but it might be nothing. It might just be some redness or whatnot. But
Yeah.
somebody might have a reaction where the hand swells up and you get edema and swelling all the way up the arm and pain in your like lymph nodes and numbness and burning and immobility. Like that's an envenomation. That's a full-blown envenomation. So a great book that goes into this, which albeit is a bit of a thick and dense read, is Venomous Snake Bites from Non-Venomous Snakes. And it talks about hognose, it talks about garter snakes, it talks about vine
Okay.
snakes, talks about all of these things that we've sort of just disregarded. And it has case studies and research and examples of bites from like all of this. And it's amazing. They actually came out with a second book, I think, about it not too long ago. But anyway, yeah, don't disregard the rear fang. But as far as somebody who's like disclosing that or selling them to a first time keeper, I think it's very crucial to put forward somebody who's a seasoned keeper who knows that, whatever, do your thing. But, if
Yeah.
you're at a show or you're at a shop, like what I'm doing, and somebody's coming in with their parents getting their first snake, that needs to be said.
Yeah. For sure. No, 100%. I agree. Um, all right, cool. That kind of covers it for Hognose experience. I know you are working with, I know you personally have a couple corn snakes. I'm not sure about the shop as well in terms of breeding or whatever, but
Yeah.
yeah, what are the corn snakes like over
So
on your?
I went through a little phase where I was like, "Ooh, corn snakes, they're small. I can get all." And then I was like, "Oh crap, I did this tarantulas too." So I whittled it back, pumped the brakes, and so I currently just have a 3-year-old pair of um, red zeppelins, the albino Okeetese localities from Howie Sherman's um, stock, and I got those from Glenn Reptiles, who's local to
Yeah.
me. Speaking of Colubrids, um, and unfortunately, she slugged out. I got 18 perfect slugs. I'm
Damn.
blaming that on El Nino.
Okay.
Because she ate like a horse, dude. I was feeding her like every 3 to 5 days, giving her like a weaned rat. Like she was voracious, and then she
Yeah.
stopped, and I got plenty of locks, plenty of breeding, but is what it is. And so I have those again. That's like my fun little side project. They are much smaller than a lot of the other corn snakes. At 3 years old, man, with how much I feed these things, I thought they'd be bigger, but I swear they're maybe 28 inches,
Really?
30 inches at
Okay.
most. Very small. And I knew that like that was kind of a thing with them, but I was just surprised. And then at the shop, we've got palmetto projects, some diffuse tessera projects. What else? I've been putting this snow ERO mail to quite a few ladies and getting some good clutches. And then I'm expecting also a clutch of T-Paws, Hunter, and milk snakes this year at the
Okay.
shop. So, but I'm also having my first experience with an egg-bound corn. Um, it's a female amel ice tessera, something like that. I don't know. She's stunning, beautiful animal, and she pushed 2 eggs out and then was just bound up like a car crash of backed up eggs in her. Um, so I did some lukewarm soaking for extended periods of time. I put more obstacles in her enclosure to help her roll over and work some of them out, and a couple came out. But then she was backed up again, so I brought probes into work today and took the smallest probe and put some of the that petroleum jelly and sort of like kind of teased around in the cloaca to
Yeah.
see if I could open it. And her oviduct is just twisted, man, because like when you see an egg come out, that tissue opens up and it's very
Yep.
cylindrically and straight. When I'm
Yep.
getting these eggs out, they're coming out the side and then like twisting and
Oh,
popping out. So her oviduct is all like I don't know. And so
yeah. It
they're
can't be
not
great.
moving out. And she's looking pretty sore, but she's okay. I got 4 more out today and I put her back and I checked on her before leaving and they've moved down. And
Okay.
she's resting. She had a good soak. So things are moving. So I'm hoping I sort of broke the floodgates and I'll come back in and everything will be good. But it's been the weirdest year for breeding stuff. I've had a record year of slugs from my everything here, not just the corns, but even the carpets. I've,
Right.
I've tallied. I've got 61 slugs to my season right now, which has never happened. I don't think I've even hit double digits in slugs before. Um, and a lot of other folks have been having egg-bound bull snakes and slug clutches and corns, like Manny in the chat. He's had some slug clutches too. It's just been weird. So I don't know. I'm not defeated. It's just something that I'm just going to take in stride. And if next year's better, then I'll just write it off as that year was just a whatever year and just keep doing it. I like I like a little bit of diversity in what I keep here and what I get to work with. So um, it's fun. It's refreshing. So the
Yeah.
corns are a lot of fun. All the different morph stuff is a lot of fun. Um, I really like the diffused tessera stuff because you get some really clean red stripes. We've got
Yes.
some low white pied stuff in there as well.
Okay.
Um, but just like I think only like maybe 6 or 7 females right now breeding. So not a ton. And depending on what we produce, we'll see what holdbacks, we get into. And um, but yeah, for the purposes of the shop, corn snakes are fantastic for first time
Yeah.
snake keepers. They're a wonderful pet. And my goal is to have a good, healthy variety to offer first time keepers that just want their like $80 corn snake. They don't care what it looks like. They just want what's pretty and something to learn. And then there's stuff for people who maybe have breeding aspirations down the line or want to pay more for something that looks nicer. Not a lot. It's obviously corn snakes, um, but I don't want them going at like the tiny fragile baby stage. Since we produce a lot of our own mice, I want to like get them well established so I can get them into that like beyond delicate tiny stage, because
Yes.
I see first time keepers get overwhelmed by the fragile and the delicate and the tiny and the flailing and the speed of such a baby corn snake if it's like that behaviorally. So um, but yeah, I'm looking forward to it, man. It's always fun doing something new. This will be my first year producing corn snakes for the shop and myself, so I'm
Nice.
excited. Yeah.
Yeah, it is so like I do find it surprising, and I haven't hatched corn snakes since I was working at a shop quite a few years ago, but the baby like Texas rats I'm hatching right now, they're just so beefy out of the egg, and
Nice.
they're bigger out of the egg than I see some people bring their corn snakes to like shows, to expos. I'm just like, holy shit. I'm like, and they're such
Nice.
great starters too, because they don't need like
Yeah.
day old pinkies. Like they could take like a normal sized pinky and it's just great. But I know
Yeah.
corn snakes could be, a bit of a work. Sometimes you hatch those super tiny babies.
Yeah, if you've got a small female that throws small eggs, yeah, you need to get those like fresh born pinks for them. So, which is fine for us because I can literally just walk over to the rack and go through all the breeders
Yeah.
and pluck what I need. But for the average keeper, maybe not so much. So, I think what we're going to do is just keep them till they're at that like up to the point where they're beyond the tiny fragile, like you gotta be careful how big of a pinky you give them stage, and beyond that they're gonna escape from any crack in something size. So
Yeah,
yeah,
for
that's the
sure.
goal.
All right. Cool. Um, Next species, I know they've been a bit of a heartbreaker for you, but gotta talk about them, the black-tailed Caribos.
Yeah, man, they're those things are some weapons, bro.
Yeah.
that's that's a big snake. They're fun, man. I got my first Cribo, my male, 11 years ago, and I got him as a little baby. I got him from Black Pearl, and
Okay.
I was at that stage. I was maybe 2 years into having learned all about the show circuits and how deep this hobby really went, and so I was at that point of like, okay, I've got a rainbow boa. What else do I want? And I was like, I need something unique. I need something that's impressive. And for whatever reason, I think I stumbled across them and indigos and learned about them. And I was like, oh, there's a guy who's at these shows all the time that breeds these. So I would see Black Pearl at all the shows. And one day I caught him at the end of the show because I was working, and he had sold out of all the blacktails, but he had one left under the table that wasn't really eating well, but he just had it in
Okay.
case somebody who had experience came by and he'd feel comfortable giving it to him. And I think I had talked his ear off enough at that point where he sold it to me for a deal, which was really good compared to how much they cost now.
Yeah.
And it I got it home, set it up in a tank, did what he said, kind of just put like, I don't even think I put any heat on it. I think I just kept it ambient like I still do. And threw some minnows or something in a bowl, and he started eating those. And then I started cross scenting a live fuzzy mouse with a live fish, and he would take those, and then it started clicking that beyond the smell, what is on the end of these tongs is food, and then he was just off to the races. And now he's just shy of 8 feet and eats everything in sight. And
Yeah.
He's the biggest puppy dog. I've taken him to educational, demonstrations, birthday parties, things like that. And I've, put him across the outstretched arms of a kindergarten class and
Okay.
with full trust. And he's just a sweetheart, They have no inclination to bite other than when it's food. And, they know the routine when it's feeding time. You pull food out, it's in the enclosure, they smell it, they're aware of it. So other than that, you have no risk of really ever being bit by those things, especially when you handle them. And at that time, I was so obsessed with them. I handled them every day, literally every day. And then
Yeah.
as I amassed more snakes, I just didn't add anymore. And then I finally got a female a few years later, and I was set. And on her 4th year with me, I bred her and got a perfect clutch. But I was given bad information, in my opinion, as far as what to incubate those eggs at, and that perfect clutch at 13 hit over 100 days, and I was like, what's going on? Hit over 120 days, what's going on? Hit over 130 days, and I cut them open, and they never took off. There was an embryo that was
Oof.
basically stuck in stasis that never took off.
No.
If I had incubated them about 4 or 5 degrees warmer, I'd have had first try 13 perfect babies, or for perfect fertile eggs go the distance
And
theoretically.
what was that temperature, if you don't mind me asking?
75.
Okay.
75 is way too cold. You need to do
Yeah.
79, 80.
Yeah.
So that's another story that doesn't really have to be public. But yeah, anyway, we'll move on from that. The next season, I bred the same pair again. Oh, in that first season was when I timed it wrong and my male tried to eat the female.
Oh
And
boy.
yeah, my wife was home at the time and she called me at work because she had heard a commotion while she was in the living room and came in and saw them, and they were basically face locked, like top jaw,
Oh
bottom to
shit.
top. And so they're at a stalemate. But he's like 3 times her size because
Yeah.
he's 7.5 feet. She's like, 5.5 feet and like that big around. And
Right.
I basically drove home from work uh, real quick, didn't even clock. I just left. I was like, done. Uh, Threw everything down, jumped in the room, and stuck my fingers in his mouth and pulled his head off of her and just completely skewered my fingers and pulled him off of
Oof.
her and did the same with her to him, and then threw him back in the enclosure because he was fine, and grabbed her and went into the bathtub and cleaned her off and everything. And fortunately her eyes were completely unscathed. He didn't get her eyes. She had a good gash on the back of her head, one on the side of her lip on the right side, and a little bit of another one. And then I set her up in a quarantine tank in the living room, and she was hunting the next day, like out looking for food. And she took food for me the next night and was like, it never happened. And she healed. She has a
Yeah.
few little scars that you never notice unless you're looking for them.
I was gonna
And
say I'm sure those healed after a few sheds or so.
dude, like it was unbelievable. I thought she was gonna die. Like I legit thought she was dying. She had tissue hanging out of her mouth, blood
Oh
everywhere. I
damn.
have all the photos, dude. It was messed up. Um, yeah, and then they bred, and that was the best clutch they gave me that year. But I think the reason why it was such a good, healthy, fertile clutch, it was because it was her first one. So it was 4 years of growth and feeding to devote to a clutch, and then the next year it was just one short calendar year, and I didn't really do well with it. So I only got like 6 good eggs, and I incubated them a little bit warmer, but it wasn't warm enough. And
Okay.
I hatched a few babies. One died in the egg, fully, full term, fully formed, pipped, and then died in the egg. And then I cut the other two just to make sure, and 3 of them hatched. One jumped out early and tore its umbilicus and then died the next day. And then 2 of them hatched out uh, with varying degrees of minor spinal kinking.
Oh, okay.
And one never took off and died, and then the other one actually ate and thrived and did really well, and lived for a few years, and then randomly died and dropped dead. So then they took the next season off, which was probably the female's choice, even though they bred. And at this point, I have my timing dialed. I know how to breed them without risking the female. I know what to look for in her behavior. I know what to look for in his behavior. I know how to sort of sit and watch and say, like, all right, she's not having it, he's not having it, too soon, or not quite yet. And I don't know if this applies to other dry marcon. I'm just speaking about at least my pair of blacktails. But I got it down to a point where I could confidently leave them in for a full day or two even. And last season I got multiple great locks, like long, solid breeding, tons of footage and everything. Super, super pleased with it. Made all the adjustments that I could. Ramped up tons of feeding that year, diversified the heck out of it, increased the amount of chicks and tilapia they were getting. So they were getting like 80%. Nice. Like I think 80% of their diet was not rodents for that entire year. And then she gave me a clutch of like full slugs, and I was just like, I don't know if I just pushed the room too cold or what, because I'm trying to balance keeping a lot of Australian things while I've got something from Costa Rica in here. And so, like I'm seeing how cold I can get, the Apodora and some of these carpets within reason, but then also trying to get it cold enough for the Crebos. And so, like, how much did that play a role? How much did my El Nino suspicions that everybody can publicly make fun of me for if you think it's hokey? I think it's hokey too.
No, I've heard a bunch of it too. You'll hear someone like Emilio Villarino Reptiles. He thinks that played a big part in people's seasons last year on the ball python side, because everyone went late and everyone had a weird year last year. It seems like the clutches are starting to come back earlier on that side of things. I haven't necessarily had problems, but I have an extremely small sample size, so I can't really talk.
Well, that's the thing. It's like there's nothing quantifiable. There's nothing written down. There's no real like data to support it. But anecdotally, you'll hear it across the board that when there's an El Nino season, if you look at it and you correlate it and look at people's production those years, their production slumps. Always. It's always much lower those years. Call it what you want, but there's a weird correlation there. So yeah, I've had them for 11 years. They're easily the most intelligent and rewarding colubrids to keep. They're so much fun, but they are big, they're active. You got to give them a lot of space. My male's in this 6-foot enclosure down here. And my female's in a 4x2x2 up there, and that's plenty of space for them based on how I've set it up and how they use it. Obviously, if they could have more, they'd use more, but like it's comfortable for them, and I can breed them in that setup, and I just run them pretty much ambient. So they're cool, but I've had them for 11 years, and they're breaking my heart sometimes, and there's a chance I might move away from them this year.
Okay.
We'll see though. I don't have a ton of space. If I lived in a house and had more space, then I would, just keep trying and, expect nothing and hope for the best out of them as a side project. But, when space is limited and California housing market is what it is, I'm just kind of stuck between a rock and a hard place with them. So, I love the species. I love these animals, and if they're going to somebody, they'll go to somebody who does too. So, I think it's okay to move on from stuff. It's easy to get attached to these animals too, which is also okay.
Yeah.
I just, I think it's okay to throw in the towel on a project and say, I've had my time. It's been fun, and move these on to somebody else who can have an experience and have an opportunity with them. And I can always come back to them later if I feel there's a void. And, in my heart. You know, I know
Yeah.
people who breed them, so they're being bred more readily these days. Granted, they cost about 5 times what I paid for them, my first
Yeah, they're
one. So
definitely those prices are high when I take a look on
yeah,
on all the dry mark on.
and rightfully so. They're not easy to breed. They're big snakes. They're rare. They eat a lot. They require a lot of time on the keepers and keeping them cleaned and fed and all that stuff. You know,
Yeah.
Lord knows every dry mark on keeper knows how much they go to the bathroom in their water bowl, out their water bowl, on the glass, on the wall. You know, it's constant, and then you got to keep up with their digestive system. So
Yep.
um, yeah, they're not for everyone, and I don't have any issues with whatever price point they're at now. Um, so yeah.
Cool. We had a question in the chat. Aaron wanted to know how cold did you drop the Cribos? I guess for brumation.
Yeah, I got them down to like 60 degrees, I think.
Okay.
Maybe even high 50s once or twice in here. So I run them fully ambient. I don't have any heat on them
Yep.
other than I have an optional basking lamp for the female when she's gravid, which I do think is important, even if she wants to leave it and find cooler spaces. Um, yeah, I got them into low 60s many nights, and 1 or 2 nights even high 50s, because I can basically crack a window in this
Gotcha.
room and let it get real cold.
Yeah.
So
Awesome. Cool. And then I believe you mentioned you have some like kink snake experience at the store, and like, can you go over what other kind of projects you work with at the store, and what other successes you've had there?
yeah, as far as colubrids go, we've got some Western hognose morphs growing up there for future breeding. We have some Cali king snakes growing up. We have an adult female, but we're raising up another male, and then they'll hopefully breed next year. We've got 2 pairs of Mexican black king snakes that we've been raising up that are just shy of size, so those will be breeding. So I'm really looking forward to tinkering with those. We have a beautiful pair of Theri, the variable kings, that
Nice.
I didn't really like them at first. I didn't get them. I didn't get the appeal. I'm not gonna lie. I was like, these just look kind of goofy to me, and they look like some kid just Crayola colored a few snakes, different colors, and it's like here. And then my boss got a few of them, and a few of them started growing and changing the colors coming in. And we have this one that's just like bright orange. It's like, whoa, okay, I get it. These are cool.
Yeah.
So we've got those guys, and then oddly enough, the ones that I disliked the most have kind of grown on me a little bit are the Honduran milks. We have a very
Oh
small
yeah.
group of T-Paws Hondurans, and man, I did not like them at first.
Was it because they were very like wriggly as babies?
Oh, and they would just
Like,
musk and fling
yep.
pee all over me. I'd
Yep.
literally be cleaning them and go to put them away, and they'd be like, "Bah!
Yep.
Say that to your new enclosure." I'm like, "God damn it!" Um, and they're just annoying. I was just like, "Why do you people want these?" Like, we barely carry them in the shop. Every time I pull them out for a customer, it's like peeing and pooping all over me. Like, ew, I don't want that. I'm like, yeah, me neither.
It's like they have I don't even want to call it an age barrier. I feel like there's almost like a
Mm-hmm.
size barrier to when
Yep.
they grow out of that. But
Yep.
in my opinion, Hondurans are some of my favorites. And I got, when I worked at a pet shop, I got to keep and be part of the breeding process of those.
Mm-hmm.
We bred some, what was it? I think we were breeding for, it was like Anery hypos, which I think were called ghosts in the
Nice.
Honduran world. Like those were super fun, and hatching those
Yeah.
babies was a lot of fun. So those were
Yeah.
some of my that was a memorable species for me that I got to.
Yeah. I have a lot of respect for them, especially given their historic place in the hobby and how long they've been around. And to me, it's kind of like a hobby staple, like a classic, like a
Yeah.
classic car, Um, And so my boss got them from Glenn. Again,
Okay.
shout out to Glenn. Um, and at first I was like, dude, why did we get these? Nobody's gonna want these. Like, I can't sell these things if we produce these. Like, these things suck. They pee all over me. I can't, like, how am I supposed to talk these up? And then after enough months of like just constantly cleaning them every week, I also realize it's about how you handle them too. They do not like the same handling and like tactile stimuli as a lot of other snakes do. They're much less tolerant of multiple points, and they really just tolerate it more on the ventral as opposed to being
Yeah.
gripped or handled or anything. You kind of have to
Yep.
walk them a lot. As soon as you start restraining them, they start flinging pee and any pressure and stuff. They're very pressure sensitive. It's almost like
At that
monitor
baby
lizards.
stage. But then
Yes.
once they get older, that's when they'll
Yeah.
literally you're almost making a fist, and they'll just kind of wrap around your hand, and they'll
Yeah.
sit there.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. It's like at like a year or year and a half. It's like a certain size where they're like when they're taking fuzzies and they're just like no longer. I guess it comes with confidence and time and obviously some experience. But yeah, that's when the younger ones that we have stop doing it. And honestly, they're garbage disposals. They're very reliable.
Oh
They're
yeah.
what and obviously they're great to look at. They're super pretty. So they've definitely grown on me the last couple of years. So I pulled our female out and palpated her, and she's definitely got eggs in her. So uh, just
Very nice.
counting down. She gave me a shed last week, so I think that's her prelay. She's been off food for 2 months now. Her choice.
If you've
So
never seen milk snake eggs before, prepare to be intrigued. Yep.
long and goofy. Yeah, this will be my
Yeah.
first time seeing it in person. I've
Okay.
seen
Cool.
them. I've seen like pine snake eggs. Those trip me
Yep.
out. Speaking of trippy eggs, Crebo eggs have this weird crystalline structure all over them.
Okay.
When I got those good eggs, I put a macro lens on my camera and was taking photos of them, and it looks like shark teeth stuck and glued all over the
Interesting.
dang egg everywhere. And that's obviously in well, I shouldn't say obviously. In my opinion, I believe that's to help keep air flowing over the surface of the egg when they are deposited in a very mulchy, dense, humid environment, built sort of nest or wherever these snakes lay. And it keeps just enough of that off the surface of the eggs to allow air to circulate, keeps moisture away, things like that. But yeah, weird eggs and colubrids fascinate me.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to it, definitely.
Yeah. Just responding to one of these comments. Yeah, a baby Lamprepeltis will give you hell. So that includes
Yeah.
all the king and milk snakes. Really, my opinion is as they age, king snake like they could all still be like, especially Cali Kings could still be hit or miss, but in my
Yeah.
opinion, like regular handling, all that stuff, that's what I always promote, especially with the rat snakes too, because everyone says Texas
Hmm.
rats are the devil when they're just not, because I don't get bit by any adults and
Texas rats
not
are
by my
fun, man.
yearlings. Yeah, those are
They're
my
like they
those are my
remind me of
favorites.
carpets. They're like the colubrid carpet, sort of, to me.
Yeah.
Um, I think, carpets have sort of a similar reputation as babies, minus the musking and stuff. And I've
Right.
found that when I separate babies as hatchlings immediately, and I'm from day one being hands-on, picking you up and cleaning, hands-on, picking you up, hands-on for like at least a minimum once a week, picking you up to just do the thing and just let you kind of freak out the first few times. Just doing that has a profound effect on them. And then once you get over the hump of them instant reacting to everything, then you can start letting them think and you can start going a little bit slower. I like to just be real deliberate with them. Like, you're dealing with this. There is nothing sacred in this world between you and me. You and I are the same. We are one. I'm picking you up. No part of your
Yep.
body is off limits. I'm touching face, tail, everything in between. And I find most of the time it works. Granted, there's some that have a personality that you got to baby it and feather it back more and think of it in training terms and just kind of pay attention to where their threshold is, where they give you that adverse reaction, and push it up to that without getting the adverse reaction, and then back off and build on that. And next thing you know, you'll have a very confident snake. It might take some time, but some figure it out right away. Some need a year, some need a week, some need several years. But if you pay attention to it like that, you can get even the most high stress animal to completely flip the script and become a healthy animal, a happy animal that eats, that thrives. And even if your goal is to breed, will breed for you. So
Yeah.
I've done it with a lot of snakes. I've done it with carpet pythons. I've done it with blood pythons. I've done it with, the colubrids at the shop. I mean, it can be done for sure.
Yeah.
Just how much do you love that species? Because if you
sure.
don't love it, you're not going to love dealing with the poop and the bites. That's for sure.
The one species I have that I haven't figured out how to like just make them chill out, especially as adults, are the bamboo rat snakes, because those things are freaking missiles. They are, as adults, they do not want to mess with you at all. You lay a finger on them, they are flipping faster than anything. I've been talking about it, especially now that I have a group of 4 adults. Now the babies is a little bit easier because you can kind of, do the old put my whole hand over you, so you can't really do anything. You don't have a choice.
You just palm them and pick them up.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, but then the adult, it's like, nah, I literally go in there with a hook. I'm not lying. I get them with a hook. I let them get comfy, and then I put my hands on them.
Okay.
That seems to be the way I get to calm them down, but I don't know.
So would you say they're less reactive to a hook as the first point of contact compared to a hand?
Yes, very, very less reactive.
Interesting. I wonder if that has anything to do with the body temperature of your hand compared to the hook.
That's interesting. I'd be curious about that as well.
I would imagine that wouldn't make too much of a difference, but maybe. I don't know. Because you keep them cooler, correct?
I mean, I keep them all in the same room, arguably, but like I just keep them on the lower tubs. But like at ambient temps in here. So yeah, they're slightly cooler compared to everything else.
That's what I thought. They remind me of the mandarin rat snakes. I had one of those for a short while. Those are awesome, wonderful snakes, but yeah, they don't like it warm, which is why I don't have them anymore. Eventually the idea is to have 2 designated spaces where I have one that I can let stuff that takes a hot deal with it. That's, generally the Australian and Indonesian stuff. And then I want a cooler space. Something like something I can keep in the 70s most of the time. Yeah. And then have diamonds and some of that stuff in there. So yeah, that would then probably feed back into me getting more colubrids eventually, because I go for snakes. Every time I go to Glenn's place, his freaking envy and zombie snows and all that stuff just blow my mind. Bull snakes are another thing that I have somehow managed to avoid. My buddy Travis Johnson of Living Legless Reptiles used to live in Paso Robles, and so for like 7-8 years he was a couple hour drive for me, and I'd go visit him in Cusco all the time, and we'd play with Travis's bull snakes, and I every time I was like, where is Happy? Bring out Happy. And Happy was the crankiest, like patternless hypo bull, just the meanest thing, and I'd always play with him, and he never would bite me. And I just found their hissing and their personality so endearing. That was a species I first experienced back in the Santa Barbara Zoo. We brought one in for education, and I just loved everything about how different he was. The way he would eat. He would grab the rat, pull it away, and slingshot his tail end at me. And several times he would slap me in the face out the door of the cage. But at the very least, he would just throw a defensive coil in front and bring his food back here. Like, try it. I'll drop this and go for you if you want. Try it. And he was just so much fun. But then you take him out, and he was a gentle giant. He got to like 6 feet, and I could take him out for all the kids, and
Yeah.
I'd have crowds of hundreds of people around that were terrified of snakes that would come up and pet him, and it was a very profound time working with that snake. And so then going to Travis's house was like going to Disneyland for me, because he had
Nice.
hundreds, every single flavor, color, pattern, you name it. And obviously we were good friends, and so I would just go in his reptile room, just open everything, just play. It was so much fun. And so, that's the beautiful thing about all too many species, too little time, right? Make friends,
Yeah.
make more friends, because they're not going to keep the same stuff as you. You can go have
Yeah.
fun with other people's stuff. So bull snakes are a lot of fun. Pine snakes are fun. I narrowly avoided getting into black pines, because there was a minute where I was like, okay, I need all black snake projects. I was like, black pines, indigos, black milks, MBKs. I was like getting ready to go into that realm. And I was like, what am I doing? I need to stop shopping. So I pumped the brakes, but like all that stuff, man, you can find cool snakes everywhere. And colubrids just dominate the world as far as the sheer numbers. Like,
Yep.
I mean, at one point I was keeping uh, green cat-eyed snake, Boiga cyanea, and
Okay.
I got into them before I really knew what I was doing, and I got bit by my female. I'd raise her up from just past that orange color into like a year or two, and I was like, oh, what if this is bad? And I just second guessed myself, and I sold her to a friend. And I was like, I should
Okay.
probably like wait. And that was, shoot, that was a long time ago. That was back when San Diego still had a super show going on. So that was
Gotcha.
probably a decade ago, maybe more. Anyway, yeah. So there's just too many snakes out there, dude. Like, I could see myself getting into the Slowinski eye just because of how cool that story is.
Nice.
Um, like, I have a lot of respect for unique locality type, unique species type, especially stuff that has a cool story behind the name, or just anything unique about that. Like, I'm a sucker for locality stuff. Like I obviously love, um, carpet pythons have a lot of locality variation that we can't get here in the States. So I see that on a lot of the socials of the guys over in Oz. And we have some of it here in the States, but not a lot. And so, I think about how lucky the diehard colubrid folks are, because you can, theoretically really get that specific into the woods with stuff like banded kings and California king snake localities. I mean, shoot, you
Yeah.
could have 100 different localities and phenotypes and morphs of California king snakes, and no two would look alike, and you wouldn't even be, done. So,
Yeah.
oh, what's up, MJ?
What's up, MJ? Thanks for tuning
Oh,
in.
yeah, bro.
The
I know
homie.
that. Shoot, you want to talk about busy? That guy's a machine. I don't know
Yeah,
how he does it.
I know. I know. All right, man. So cool. That was kind of the overview about colubrids, and this is where I let my guest, take over and talk about the rest of their collection. Because obviously, I brought you on, but your mainstay are the Morelia. So, please, if you want to dive into your collection outside of colubrids a little bit, go right ahead.
Yeah. So I will say this: colubrids were my first snake. California king snake was my first love. I do see myself getting back into those eventually, but yeah, man. As soon as I saw my first adult female jungle carpet with the big muscular head and the heavy labial pits and the jet black eyes, I was like, oh, what is this, and where can I get more? I was instantly hooked, instantly. And it took some time to learn, um, the various ins and outs of the morphs and which, subspecies and species they belong to. And how you speak essentially, how you talk the talk of Morelia. There's like a language to it, as there is with everything. When you talk ball python morphs, it sounds like a different language to people. It's the same thing, like there's certain ways to formulate a name of an animal with a potential morph that in the name implies the morph combination and the potential species or subspecies cross. And so you have to learn that, and you have to learn the nuances. And around the same time in 2012, 2013, when I was like getting deep into the woods of the show scene and learning about that whole circuit, was when I was finding carpet pythons and learning all of that. And so that was when Psychotic Exotics was still around in Southern California. And so I became very good friends with Todd Dyer, the man who ran the show there for Kerry King, before they sold the business a year or two ago. And he essentially mentored me. He would answer my messages. He would talk to me at all the shows. He would put up with me when I was that pesky newbie, and he would school me when I said something wrong or stupid, or like that clearly showed I didn't understand what I was speaking about. And he would correct me and teach me. And he went so far as to even bring me to his warehouse a few times, which at the time was not something anybody did. Like, you don't get to go to that warehouse. And we pulled a bread light clutch. We looked at babies. I got bit in the face by a beautiful tiger jag that I ended up he gave to me, and then ended up buying my first tiger from him there, and fell in love with tiger coastals and learned about all this stuff, and just realized how deep the woods went. And I was in. I didn't know how deep I was in at that moment, but I knew I was in. And I'm a lifer. Like, I'll have Morelia till I die.
Yeah.
Like, that's just gonna be what it is. But I love that I can, to a degree, dabble with all these different species and subspecies and morphs, and kind of scratch a lot of different itches in that way. And I found their personality very endearing. They come off as pretty intense. They have a very undeserving reputation of being, big, monstrous, bitey snakes. And like, yeah, 1 out of 100 is, but not monstrous. And they're not really that bitey. That it's probably defensive, and, change the scenario up for that animal, and I guarantee you it flips the script. Because my buddy Travis.
I mean, and what snake isn't, if we're being honest? Like, what snake isn't, or doesn't have the capability of biting, and especially as babies.
100%. And that's what you want in a baby. You want a hungry, nippy baby.
Yep.
Those are the best eaters. That's something you can work with. And so I just found them endearing. I wasn't perturbed by their reputation. I wasn't put off by getting nailed and learning along the way by like bigger animals from when I was making mistakes, like reaching over them in weird ways or working with them at night. Like, people think I'm crazy when I say this, but after lights out, you don't pull carpet pythons out without using a hook and being very like aware that you need to turn off that hunting response. Because during the day, generally it's no big deal, but as soon as it's lights out, their instincts kick back in. They know what's up. These things, they're just different. So I just don't even bother with cleaning after dark, because I just end up getting bit a whole hell of a lot more from nice animals too that wouldn't normally bite. That's just what they're programmed to do. And carpets are notorious for being garbage disposals and eating and getting big sizes, because people love watching their snakes eat. So we push them to obese sizes. I've killed snakes from obesity before they hit 10, 100%. I didn't know better. I've had to learn that the hard way. And my buddy Travis sent me an 8-foot jungle female that you could not safely handle at his place. Shipped her to me. She came here and never used a hook with her a day in her life until she died. Sweet animal, just a change of scenery. And so, things like that I find fascinating with the species. And I start thinking of why I love them. And honestly, looking at other snakes in that regard too, which is why I, have such a diverse respect and array for everything else. But yeah, to me it felt like almost like a forbidden fruit because you can't export out of Australia anymore, and it feels like
Yeah.
a limited something or other, like however you want to quantify it mentally. It just felt like a finite thing. Like there's only so much you can have of these, and they're already so niche and within a niche hobby. It's like how much more convincing do I need that this is maybe for me? Because I've never done anything mainstream, never played mainstream sports, I never, I've always just preferred to go off the beaten path and blaze my own trail. And so carpets, they had
Right.
the reputation, nobody wanted them, people weren't big in them, they weren't popular except for diehard metalheads, and I was like, that's me, so I'm going this way. And I just love them, man. And I've found that they make fantastic pets for people who are willing to listen and understand. They might not be for everyone, but I would say they're probably for like 90% of people fully capable for sure. Um, just some of them can attain 7 feet or even more. Um, but they're great. They're very hardy, very resilient snakes for the most part. If you kind of keep within basic Python husbandry parameters, they'll climb. They're very active. You can hang out with them. They readily eat. You almost never have, meal refusal, which to their detriment, you can certainly overfeed them. But
Right.
I just, you know, I just find their history so fascinating. If you think about the evolution of pythons and that Australasian sort of trajectory down that way, and how everything's kind of gone the way it has, and why they look the way they look, and carpet pythons have a very plastic phenotype, so they reflect their environment in just a couple generations. So you see even within species some like variation. It's just, to me, it's the best of every world of keeping reptiles. You get morphs, you get localities, you can still get imports in the Papua and stuff for now.
Yeah.
There are still some pure lines available. There are still some pure localities still available, and you can just really have that that interactive pet, or that one display animal, or a bunch of fun interactive animals, or a really unique breeding project, or whatever it is. There's just something for everybody, and they're fun, man. There's more going on upstairs with them. Um, I like working with them. I wouldn't say they're the smartest snake, but you know, like our gears mesh. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like this is the species that clicks with me.
Gotcha.
Um, and after I kind of got my feet wet breeding some ball pythons and a few other things and some rainbow boas, and I was like, all right, I'm gonna try breeding carpets after I collected a group, and ever since then it's just been building and building and building, and now I have 50 breeders or so between males and females.
Oh wow.
Um, and I don't breed everything every year, and I kind of offset and rotate, and I've got 20 or 30 holdbacks from the last 2 years, and planning on more. So it's just kind of this growth trajectory, and a lot of people within Morelia find a species or subspecies and start in that, and maybe branch out a little bit. But to be fair, if you don't have a lot of space, it's a lot of snakes. So it's kind of hard
Yeah.
to. And I went full bore into everything from day one. I was like, I need to complete the set. This is
I was gonna say,
Pokemon.
do you have every carpet
Not yet.
species?
I
Okay.
need I need diamonds. Um,
Gotcha.
and then imbricata aren't available in the United States, but if they were, I would probably kill somebody for them. Um, yeah, I'm not gonna deny it. I'd rob a bank for them for sure. Um, but yeah, I diamonds are on my list, but they like it cooler as far as ambient goes, and a nice cool winter. So I haven't gotten them because I don't want to do them wrong. Um, and arguably Brettles should probably be kept similar, but I've been able to get away with that in this room by, keeping them a little bit cooler in different ways and cooling them at the shop in the warehouse. And
Gotcha.
so, but yeah, those and roughies and chondros, the entire Morelia complex just fascinates me. And the more research and papers that come out as they're like reclassifying things, I find it super interesting. I love learning that and abiding by that if I agree with it. And Daniel
Yeah.
Natusch's paper on chondros that found that there's like 3 species and a subspecies and likely even more that needs to be researched and discovered. I think that's just awesome for the hobby and for these animals and for people who are interested in it. And so I used to have some chondros, 10 years ago, and then I got rid of them, and now I'm getting back into them. So I've got one little sarong, and
Oh,
I
you
just
do?
want to, yeah.
Nice.
I want to contribute in my own little way to some little sliver or something in that side project. And so I figured there's a lot of designer stuff and not a lot of locality stuff nowadays. I used to be able to get whatever I wanted from Clockwork on the internet if I really wanted to, and now that's just not the case. And so the locality stuff has kind of um, gotten more sparse, and I would hate to see that disappear. Not that there's
Yeah.
anything wrong with the designer stuff, because the designer stuff I think is the poster child for chondros and spearheads any interest in them whatsoever.
I think it's
Um,
great because I feel like right now the
yeah,
chondros are on the up and up, and they're gonna
it's
keep
such
going.
a
And I could
healthy
say,
market too.
yeah, and I could safely say, I mean, MJ's segment. I mean, I've been watching the shit out of that. But like,
Yes,
I definitely would like to get at least a couple, whether it's for pets or for eventually breeding. But like, I'd love
sure.
to at least just keep one.
Dude, I mean, see, that's the thing. There's not a ton of snakes that most reptile people would be like, I'd love to have at least one or keep a cute couple or breed or whatever. Like most people say, yeah, I'd be down to keep at least one. And things like that, like that's just a beautiful snake, like Brazilian rainbow boas. I bred those
Yeah.
for 10 years. Most people would keep one as a pet just because it's naturally beautiful, which is why I never got into the morphs. I didn't feel the
Right.
need to get into the morphs. Why am I going to spend 5 grand on snakes that aren't even selling online? I'm not seeing them move. People are like climbing over one another to get these natural wild types that you can't improve upon. You can't improve upon that. Those morphs detract away from that, and that's why you don't see the rainbow morph market really progressing at all, other than albinos.
Right.
And I'm not gonna lie, albino rainbow boas are ugly. They don't have the pretty iridescence, and they take away everything that makes a rainbow boa pretty. So
Right.
I was just never gonna invest in anything more related there. And after I had it's the same like the Mad Hogs in them, I just kind of closed the chapter and moved them on. But yeah, chondros, they're just beautiful. There's a lot of animals out there that are iconic, and those are one of the more iconic species out there. And so I think there's a lot of people that think like me that want to step into filling a little bit of a sliver of the void in
Yeah.
locality stuff. And I think people like Gary Savino has done a great job of demonstrating how to do that with things like Maniquaris and some of the
That's what I would
localities.
want. It's a maniquari. I love those so
I
far.
mean,
Everyone I've seen, like, they're
yeah,
very cool.
they're beautiful snakes. And let's be real, even just a plain old green tree python with nothing else on it is still a
Yeah.
beautiful snake.
Yeah,
Like
it's still very
you
cool.
go to the zoos that have those will stop the most unknowing of patrons there every time. So
Yep.
if we could get the Australian stuff that's like that pretty lime green with the beautiful white one nice dorsal stripe going
Yeah.
buddy. Yeah, I would do some very bad things for those. Um, yeah, I yeah, Morelia is just for whatever reason it just clicks with me. It's just that's my team. But at the same time, I'm never have been, never could be, and never will be one of those people that keeps only one species. I can't do it.
Yeah, it's impossible for me as well. I
Yeah.
can't. My interest, like I see, I want. It's a matter of will I keep, but like even right now, like the variability I have, I get to fill these little niches, and even just opening that tub and seeing what that snake looks like, that does it all for me.
Yeah. Yeah, I used to be a lot more um somewhat impulsive in adding new things because I just love it all. I mean, how can you not? Frogs, geckos, tarantulas, mantids, boas, colubrids, tortoises. Like, dude, it's just there's so much out there. And then lately, I've kind of been really good about like not doing that and keeping it fine tuned and actually appreciating what I already have.
Sometimes you have to too, like
Yeah.
with your space constraints and just
Hmm.
like uh you know upkeep and time you could dedicate. So like
Yeah.
I especially like I've been watching your YouTube. I watched some videos here and there, and you put in a lot of work, and I see that background behind you. Like it's a lot of snakes, and that's nothing to shrug at.
And it changes all the time. Like this is gonna be full in probably a week.
Yeah.
And then off camera, I've got a rack that isn't even plugged in, plus two more ready to go, and I'll definitely fill up those ones
Yeah.
after everything's done in the incubator. And if I have a Brettles clutch, then I'll probably have to plug that, hatchling rack back on, and I'll be full before I know it. So
Right.
it definitely takes time. Baby season is a lot of work. It's a big commitment. You got to really want it. And if you grow into it, you grow up to your threshold. If you're paying attention to how much
Yep.
you want to deal with and how much you put up with and how it integrates with your lifestyle and what sacrifices you're willing to make and, um, how much time in your day you're willing to put into it. And, it's okay to admit like, oh crap, I pushed it too much, and then you come back. But um, yeah, I had 97 babies last year, and I have no idea how many I have going this year. It won't be like last year, but last year was my biggest season, and I was like,
Okay.
during it, I was like, this is a lot. And after the fact, I'm like, I wish I produced more. I needed more.
Yeah, I
So,
mean, even right now, like I'm setting myself up for like, and it's really my second legit year. 6 babies on the ground, 14 more eggs incubating. I'm expecting a couple ball python clutches in a couple weeks. So like,
dude,
it's
that's
gonna be
awesome.
pretty serious for me.
Dude,
You know,
your first seasons theoretically are big steps each year.
yeah, yeah,
If you
for
were to
sure.
plot them on a graph, first season, one clutch, second season, five clutches. Like that's a 500% increase.
Yeah,
Even if the numbers aren't anything to shake a stick at from like big breeder comparison. For you in that time, that's a lot. That's new. That's something to adjust
yep,
to. And it's I think the best thing to do during it is just be honest with yourself along the way. Like, is this hard work? Yes. Do I like doing this? Yes. Then keep
yes,
going. You're good.
yeah, yeah,
Like we get into our heads and we get into self-doubt, especially if there are people that think we're crazy or doing too much or whatever it may be. Um, Self-doubt is normal and questioning yourself is normal, but if you're producing animals and they're healthy and you're able to find new homes for them if that's your goal, or you're keeping them and you're doing that well, there's no reason to stop. If it makes you happy and you can afford it and do right by them, keep going,
yeah,
man.
yeah, 100%. Cool. So, I wanted to dive into some other topics. I wanted to get into general, I guess, we'll call it internet stuff on your end. So, I want to
Hmm.
highlight first, like social media between Instagram and YouTube. I mean, you have a pretty solid following both on Instagram and YouTube. I mean, I think, especially in the reptile industry, like it's a big achievement to be over 10K followers if we're being legit. If if you're not following like a million people, and just looking right now, you have 13.2K.
Mhm.
Plus your 3,000 plus subscribers on YouTube, which is nothing to shrug at either, because we all know how hard it is to, do
Yeah.
YouTube like that, and you're doing very
YouTube's
well and
rough.
being very consistent. Yeah. But kind of just talk about that and how you grew that over the last few years or so.
Yeah, so to kind of put into perspective what the last few years have been, I would have to go back to the beginning as to why. And it started with once Instagram kind of became the main platform for sharing photos and stuff. I was like, okay, this is cool. I want to document the animals I keep, and that was
Yeah.
as far of a thought as I went into that. And then obviously as these platforms grew and snowballed, I just kind of grew with it. But then I really started pushing YouTube a few years ago because I was obviously seeing so many other people in their heyday, especially once we hit the pandemic and everybody was filming and making videos every day. Some channels, like obviously Barchek's channel, led the way. And
Yeah.
man, I was watching him since the snake bite days. Like
Me
I
too.
remember when he was putting out episodes like 100, 150, like, things like that. And I was like, you got to stop putting them out so fast. I'm still trying to catch up in the backlog. Like I would wake up 2 or 3 hours before work and I would scroll all the way back to the very first video he ever put out and then scroll up to where I was. And that was my
Yep.
morning routine for years. And so then after seeing everybody else doing it and kind of falling in and out of love with social media like 10 times, I just realized at a certain point, I was like, there's nobody on YouTube um, talking about carpet pythons. There's no content out there talking about carpet pythons. There's very little. And so I think that's what kind of started my interest, but I didn't know where that was going to take me and what I was going to do with that thought. I was just like, I'm going to just start putting stuff up here. And then as I was doing that, I was comparing my content to what other people were doing and sort of taking little aspects that I was comfortable doing and what I liked doing, and then paying attention to what I wasn't comfortable doing, and slowly just getting more comfortable with hearing my voice on camera, and then
Yeah.
you're seeing my face on camera, and putting it out there, and then putting it out there regularly, and then putting it out there not only just regularly but consistently, and I had some growing pains with that, and learning what to pay attention to as far as why people are or aren't watching your videos, and what the analytics and the metrics are telling you and how to use that. And I still don't have it figured out, but I'm getting there. um, I've learned a lot of what I don't want to do. And unfortunately, a lot of what I don't want to do is what's keeping my numbers from growing. And to me, that's the sensationalism. That's
Yeah.
the over enthusiastic energy, the being something that I'm not, that like I wouldn't even feel comfortable filming that in my own privacy and not putting it out. Um, so I struggled with that for a while because I was like, I need to make content that people want, but like I don't want to do this. And so for a while, consistency became the hard part. It was like, what do I film? What do I do? And I was like, yeah, screw it. I'll just go off for a while. But then lately, it just enough people started getting interested, and enough people started consistently commenting, and enough people started engaging with me on it and saying they appreciated it. And as I was growing and learning and evolving it, I started sort of amassing a little bit of a regular following in YouTube and on Instagram of people who would just engage. And I kind of started feeling obligated to keep going because so many people were reaching out saying they learned so much or they appreciated this or that, or because I shared this, they got into this species, or because I did this, they got over this fear, or whatever it was. And it sort of reminded me of what was most fulfilling while working in zoos, and that was,
Right.
teaching people stuff. And I'm not like, the most educated on in anything. I don't have a master's. I'm not a PhD. None of that stuff. But I've been working with snakes for 25 years. I figure I probably have at least something to offer. And so I started gearing
Right.
my thoughts that way and challenging myself to make content like that. And then one day I just stepped out on a limb and was like, I'm going to form a Patreon and see if I've created any sort of interest or following and see if I can't take it to the next level. Because if you get people that want to support you that much, then maybe you're onto something. And so Patreon's taken off to a good, healthy, respectful level. And I've got a good community that I can keep up with and manage without it being so great that I feel like I'm not devoting enough time to them. And
Right.
I feel like I can offer something of value to them outside of what I'm putting out to the public. And, they get first access to all the information of what's going on here and babies and discounts on babies and discounts on merch. And, they get hooked up as much as I can and have time for it, and they respect it. And ultimately what I found is this lane for me within social media and online presence where I can stay authentic and true to myself. I don't have to compromise my values and my interests and the content I put out just to, pay bills or whatever it is. I'm not beholden to anybody but myself. And so I can stay authentic like that. And it's
Yeah.
gotten to a point where people see that. And I
Yeah.
think they respect that. Not that there's anything wrong with maybe sensationalizing and being entertaining and drawing people in, because obviously they reach the masses more. So, that's a very beneficial thing. But I'm just, that's just not me. So, I'm happy with the lane I've carved out for myself. It's growing steadily. I really like watching the numbers. It's
Yeah.
like a little competition with myself. Like, how can I beat those numbers this week? How can I beat those numbers this
Right.
week? And it doesn't result in me compromising what I'm doing. So it's just been authentic growth, and I've gotten over the uncomfortable hump. I've gotten over the feeling of being self-absorbed by doing it. I'm still not 100% comfortable with it all the time. Like, you're not going to catch me vlogging at a show, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah, I
but
gotcha.
but much respect to the people that do, because they're obviously much more comfortable being themselves in public than I am, I suppose. But um, yeah, I found that there was a void of stuff that I was looking for, and that's where it started. And it turned into other people recognizing that there wasn't carpet python content out there as well. And as people have expanded their horizons into other species, it's just naturally grown, and it's been great. I mean, I was on Instagram for a long time. I was on YouTube for a long time before I started really putting in content. Like, I think I've had a YouTube account for 14 years or something like that, but I didn't start putting content on it until like maybe 7 or 8 years ago. And even then, it was just
Gotcha.
once in a while. Um, so yeah, it was nothing before, and now it's sort of something. And I'm kind of hoping it turns into more. Like, I would love to see it pay for things and work for itself. But if it doesn't, I'm still going to do it. And,
Yeah.
until it's not fun or I'm not benefiting people who are watching the content, then I'm just going to keep doing it, because the animals aren't going anywhere. So why not, share it with people? Like, what's the point of
Yeah.
having all these beautiful animals if you don't share them with people?
Hey, and I mean, on your videos, you're still getting comments and still views. So like people are watching. So,
Yeah, and you can always do these little metrics for your own content and look at and see what sort of level of engagement. Like, are you getting good engagement compared to, like, are you getting in that 3 to 5% of, like, likes and views to your subscribership, or whatever that happy number is on
right.
average. And so you can sort of teach yourself what those things are, and use it as a tool to, like, okay, let's change this, or let's try this, or I did this in this video and it went crazy. So maybe I'll try this again. And so you start teasing out little things. So
Yeah.
Christian, yeah, my work schedule changed, and that was the end of that for me, because it's hard to get four guys on the same time every week for a freestyle podcast. We were doing that carpets and coffee thing, but what they've turned it into is fantastic. I mean, they have a coffee sponsorship, they have their own coffee blend. They've got it at a good schedule. It happens every other week, pending any, family or whatever personal life interruptions, and it's still a very fluid, free flowing sort of thing, which is what it was meant for when I started it. So um,
Nice.
it's an asset to the NPR network, and I'm proud of that.
Yeah.
So as you know, if my schedule ever changed to the point where the stars always align, I'd be always happy to talk more and go back on it. But it is what it is, having that my schedule shift where I couldn't do that anymore, and that also helped me realize, like, if I want any sort of presence, and I might just have to do it on my own, and kind of force a little bit more independence in myself, which I think was personally healthy. So
Right.
it all
I
works out.
gotcha.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. One thing I wanted to hit on going off of the social media stuff is developing your own website,
Mhm.
Riley's Reptiles. Um, well, one, I've checked it out and it's very well put together. It was super cool looking at it. I mean, all your photos are very professional on there and stuff. So, just talk
Thank you.
about how it's been since you've integrated to that website format and stuff.
It's been good. A few years ago, I sort of like half-heartedly did one of those free Weebly websites where I didn't
Right.
buy the domain, and it still said Weebly in there, and you just kind of drop and click and move a few things, and it looked like a really cheesy early 2000s PowerPoint page, and and I wasn't like motivated, and like I didn't know how to maintain it and keep up with it, and so that sort of fizzled off, and I just, Morph Market was becoming the household Google Kleenex name for classifieds over kingsnake.com or fauna classified. So I was using that with a lot of success for years, and then Darian didn't like me talking about a customer who was lowballing me, which literally everybody still screenshots and talks about. So, whenever he wants to get off of his fit on that, he can hit me up. But he blocked me, so that's on his ass. So, what it did was it forced me to better myself. So I actually thank you, Darian, for banning me and Bob Clark, even though you gave Bob Clark a hug at a show and you guys made up, but you're not willing to talk to me. But I'm the big bad scary carpet python guy, so that's fine. Um, it's fantastic, dude. Way better. No tire kickers, no time wasters, no lowball offers. People who are willing to, one, go through the filter of clicking and typing in a website, two, scrolling through a page, three, hitting the inquire button and starting a conversation with me. Every interaction with customers is fantastic. I've made friends with all of them. I keep in contact with all of them. They share with me updates regularly. It's seamless transactions every time. Very respectful people. And it's just been a breath of fresh air. I mean, there's respect on both ends. People aren't just being disrespectful, firing off messages without punctuation or etiquette or introductions or anything, and then just ghosting you because they can. Um, it filters out people who are lazy and just window shopping, which is great
Yeah.
because let's be real, nobody has time for those fraudulent people. But it is what it is. And so people who value their time, value their money, and value the animals they keep will go to you if you have a website and you're authentic and true to yourself.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what's happened. And I couldn't be happier. And I have to give a huge shout out to Adler Romero of AE Foundry for um, just being a wizard. You know, some people have the skills for web development and design and aesthetics and layouts and user experience, and some of us don't. And when you want somebody to just do it for you, but then teach you how to manage it and give you the understanding, it was perfect. It was exactly what I needed. And it's been great. And I've even since then gone back in and like changed some of the layouts and added more things and looked at it and compared it to other people's sites and solicited feedback from people and just kind of tinkered with a few things. And there's a few things more I want to do. And it's just been so nice, dude. It's so
Cool.
great. Ah, so good.
So
Yeah.
here's one thing I'm curious about, and I don't know if you're able to pull analytics for this or if people are telling you, are more people searching for you directly or are they typing in carpet pythons for sale?
More people are searching for me directly.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, I'm regularly looking through the analytics and how people are discovering me, and it shows me like the top five, and I can even filter it further down if I want. And I would say sometimes up to like 60 or 70%, because I can look it up generally or I can look it up per video or whatever.
Got it.
But like 60 to 70% are looking up um, either my channel or the video. And then sometimes 20 to 30%, it's one of the little side references on the side. And then like a few percentages below that, it's the suggested channels that you already subscribe to. So I'm actually getting more people searching for my content than subscribers are getting it fed to them.
Okay.
I found that out the other day, which was very interesting to learn because I for sure thought it would be just mostly subscribership and then a little bit of searching because that's how it always had been. But lately it's been flip-flopping because probably I've been learning a lot more about how to, tag, label, title, structure, thumbnail, all those different things to make my stuff more searchable. When you're just putting out content to put out content, that's okay. But if you're putting out content to answer questions that people have or things that people are likely searching, you're going to end up coming up in their search feed. If you just do that regular and you build it and you build it and you build it and you do it every single time, you put in the good tags, you put in the good titles, you use good thumbnails, because let's face it, people are scrolling and they're flipping through things and your subscribers want consistency, so they want the recognition of your thumbnail. So you need some color and recognition in there that's consistent every time. So once you learn that, it makes it easier for people to quickly find you while they're scrolling. You want to be searchable. You want to be searchable. Like what? Like if you're so for me, it's carpet pythons. So what are people searching about in carpet pythons? Are they really mean? How big do they get? What are these like? And if you go through all my content, I've answered a lot of that just based on the
Yeah.
title, like coastal carpet pythons. How big do they really get? And obviously I've had to learn because like some people don't like the how big do they get stuff because it's different in Australia versus here because some of the stuff they have there we don't have here, and
Got it.
maybe they have bigger sample sizes over there. I don't know, whatever it is. So you sort of you narrow your crosshairs as you learn more of these things through your analytics. You pay attention to your analytics, you respond to comments, you take feedback, you learn that volume is too high for background, this volume is too low. Like you just do it because your first video is gonna suck ass all the
Yeah.
time. Doesn't matter.
Yeah.
It's always gonna suck.
Oh,
Honestly,
I know.
your first 50 videos are probably gonna suck, and you're gonna probably wish you never made them. But you leave them up there to remind you of how far you've come, and you just learn. And I don't pay for any fancy editing software. I don't use any fancy cameras. I don't have any of that stuff. Like you can do this all on your phone. I
Yep.
have a point and shoot camera, and I use a Gorilla like Joby pod, and I edit on iMovie. And other than adding lights as needed, that's as far as I go.
Yep.
And even
I
in the
edit. I
editing,
edit on CapCut.
yeah, CapCut's great, dude. It's fantastic. I mean, you
Works.
really can do the basic stuff. You can do transitions, you can layer on music, you can superimpose photos and images and other clips. You can do all these filters and titles and you can do literally everything on your phone. And for a
And
while,
yeah,
that's exactly what I did.
I've recorded all my videos on the phone. I for the podcast I use my MacBook Pro, but it's only nice because I have the lighting in front of me. Otherwise, this camera
Sure.
sucks ass. So
Sure. Yeah.
yeah,
Technology's just gotten that good. I have a MacBook Air and I've had it for a few years, and a couple of years ago it was top tier, and now my phone is better. But point and shoot cameras, that generally the simple like $350 like Sony with card, and it's got the flip up back screen and all that stuff, like $350 for that charger, a couple memory cards and things, and you're good to go. And get yourself a USB wireless mic, get yourself a
yeah,
little Gorilla Pod, and like just understand how lighting works in frames and shots. Go watch your videos, and if you don't even like it or something, you know what to change. Like, just be a student of it if that's your goal, and the rest will just come naturally. And if you have a good personality and you have a good projection of what you're putting out there, and the content is good, it doesn't have to have bells and whistles. I mean, I think
yep,
of I think of Brian Boas, his YouTube channel. He's got something like 15,000 subscribers or something, and I don't know if he edits his video. I mean, it's like a one take in front of wooden racks with boas, and he might just like literally chop frame, no nothing. And his thumbnails are the exact same every time. They're recognizable. Like, I can pick them out of a crowd. I don't have to look for the title. I literally just recognize the layout when I'm looking for his videos. And he's consistent in what he does. He puts out content a lot, and no frills, no nothing. He's him. He's true to himself, the animals he
yeah,
loves, and it's just the quintessential. Like, I aspire to hit his numbers one day, and
yeah,
those aren't millions of subscribers. Those aren't anything, and that's because he's authentic and he hasn't compromised any of that, and he's just honest, and
yeah,
he's just undeniably, unashamedly himself, and he's like one of the biggest people I respect as far as YouTube goes. And I think that's honorable. But bottom line is anybody can do it. You just gotta. It takes work. The algorithm wants you to put out work regularly. You gotta put stuff regularly for it to end up on people's feeds and be suggested. And it's
yep,
basically like the computers. You gotta show the computer that you're worth their time, essentially.
yeah, for sure. All right, cool. Um, Kind of going into a couple different wrap up questions. A new one I came up with last week. So, you know, obviously, as I'm sure you see, and maybe you don't see, but there's a lot of negativity in the reptile industry, a
Oh
lot
yeah,
of doom and gloom and all
sure.
that stuff. What would you say is your biggest motivator for just, what keeps you going with these reptiles?
It's gonna sound real cliche, and I'll say like my short answer, and then I'll elaborate. It's the reptiles. These
Yeah.
ones, like right here, like these ones, all of these ones, and the ones that I intend to have in the future, the ones I intend to produce and provide to the people who are also looking for them. And what I mean by that is, um, it's really easy to want to stop and watch the car crash. The hard thing to do is to pull out the phone and call for 911 instead of pull out and film it. Okay. So for me, if you see a car crash, help. But otherwise, don't create one, don't be involved in one, and just focus on your own driving, right?
Yeah.
It's the same thing with reptiles. And I'm not good at this. I'm not like I'm sure there are people who will see this live or recording like, this guy, he said this to me. I won't deny it. Yeah, absolutely. I used to be engaging in all the Facebook debates and all this, not everything. I get suckered into everything. I don't even participate in Facebook groups anymore. I go on to check the little notification things to make the little red dot go away, and then I log off and I leave it. You know what I mean? Like, Instagram cross populates stuff over there for me, so I don't have to go on it. So I don't. I still have one just for connectability with family and old high school and college friends, and that's really it. But I think the biggest thing for me is to focus on myself and what I'm doing. And in turn, what that does is I focus on my happiness and what makes me happy. And in turn, that happiness translates into how I communicate and connect with other people. And when I'm happy and I'm connecting in a positive way with other people, they benefit. They feed off of that. They feel that happiness. They want it's an undeniable human characteristic to want to feel that happiness. It's engaging. It's toxic. That's why when you listen to a podcast all about one species, half you find yourself shopping for it online afterwards, because if that person was as enthusiastic on that interview as most people are, they're gonna stimulate you to want to, like, to feel that, right?
Yeah.
So for me, as soon as I started focusing on my own self and my own happiness, not paying attention to that stuff and just letting it exist and being okay with it existing, my interactions with people changed. I started just only devoting energy to just being positive and only focusing on the positive and just progressive stuff and just not engaging. And it's just translated tenfold into better connections with people, new connections with great people, and it snowballs. It's an exponential effect. If you're just focused on yourself and being happy with what's around you, and if you're not happy with what's around you, making the changes to put what's happy around you, if that's your goal, you'll succeed. And then everything else will translate into success outwardly as a ripple effect. And I'm still learning that, but I think that's been like the best thing for me lately. And so I
Yeah.
try to, that's why I don't go on Facebook. I don't think social media is really good. I don't think it's good for people, honestly. People were happier, healthier, and had less anxiety and less, divorce rates were lower, suicide was lower, all of these things before the advent of social media. And it's statistically right in front of us. It's plain to see. And so I think if everybody, focused more on just remembering why they keep the animals in the first place and like loving the animal, taking time to be with the animal instead of being with social media, and then traveling to somewhere in their world just one time in their life, go to somewhere that still has primary forest, still is wild. Go to Costa Rica, go to somewhere, just do it, because it will force you to realize that the Facebook stuff doesn't matter. It doesn't exist in the jungle. Your survival is the only thing that exists. It's water, shelter, food, and getting back home. Even if it's like a nice, beautiful lodge and it's pristine, that's ultimately the bottom line. And it just forces you to realize how beautiful and simple life can really be. And then when you come back home, you can appreciate things more, and you can be happy in some of those things that maybe you didn't appreciate as much. Or, we get so caught up in the thrill of the chase and the hunt for the next best thing that we forget what we have in front of us. People would have literally killed for years before. Um,
Right.
I never thought I would have four Apodora in here, my perfect, 1.1 captive born and bred pair and 1.1 long-term captive. And here I am.
Yeah.
Like that wasn't even a reality to me 4 years ago. Um, so I think it's just all about being honest with yourself, being grateful for what you have, appreciating the natural world, and just maybe like less social media, just little bursts of it, everything in
Yeah.
moderation, right? Because we just get wrapped up in it. It's just human nature. So yeah, that was a long-winded answer, but
It's all
um,
good.
I'm here for the animals, and the animals are here for me, and I just hope everybody can have that perspective when they're maybe caught up in it, because we get caught up in it, and that's okay. So yeah.
Cool. Awesome. Well, what does the future of Riley's Reptiles look like in the next like 3 to 5 years or so? Is it kind of just keeping the train rolling? Any big plans? What is that kind of looking like for you?
Yeah. Biggest plan in the immediate future is to buy a house. And then that translates either into converted garage space or pop-up shed in the back or whatever it ends up being. But keep the train rolling full speed ahead. Keep going at the pace I'm at. Not really adding much more than my very short list of Morelia and things like that, but really just sticking at the projects I've got, really developing the holdbacks I'm growing up, and really pushing some of these projects that I'm 2 or 3 steps into like steps 4 and 5, and yeah, just full steam ahead. And I'd like to decrease the amount of racks that I use for larger animals, so more space for the same amount of animals, ideally, and bring in more caging. One of the benefits of my job is that we build PVC cages, so
Cool.
we have a CNC machine. I'm the builder, and so as soon as I have the space, I have access to 4x2s, 3x2s,
It's great.
2x2s, whatever I want, when I want, 6x2s. I'll just be like, hey, can you cut me this? I'll build it, build me, whatever. And got a custom glass guy who can get it to me locally, wholesale. It's just, I can do it. I just need the space. So what it
Yep.
comes down to is acquiring space. I need the house. So that's the big
Yeah,
goal.
I
If
feel
I
that,
can
man.
do
I
that,
feel like,
yeah,
I feel like buying a house is like a very key thing, especially with expanding a reptile operation, honestly.
yeah, absolutely. And I would be selfish and remiss to not say that it would also benefit my wife, because then, the tortoises could leave the dining room. The geckos don't have to be in every room in the house, and I can get things a little more organized, and then she can have more of the space back. But yeah, I'm that's the thing. We're always trying to like do, accomplish, go, go, go. But sometimes we have to remind ourselves that it's okay to, you're still on the escalator and it's still going up. You're still making
Yeah.
progress. Just don't rush it. Just keep going. And so
Yeah,
I
I
think
think
that's
that's
where I'm
kind of
at.
where that's where I find myself, because it's like over most of my collection has been built over the last like 3 years or so. And
Hmm.
like I'm finding myself in a spot where it's like, okay, I may want to slash have to cut back on some things, but like I could still develop on some other things that I have growing up, and like there's still gonna be stuff there. It's not like it's going away. So
And that
yeah, it's
happens to literally everyone. And it's
exactly.
perfectly normal and acceptable to go through that. And I think to ignore that and deny that is wrong. I think people can be a little bit critical of like people who maybe get into species and then get rid of them like 6 months later, like, oh, you just flipped it. Like, no, they just realized it wasn't the right fit for them, or
Yeah,
life
I think the
happened,
bigger I think the bigger problem is people who get fully out. They're like, yeah, collection's gone, like I'm done with this. And I'm just like,
Yeah, that's hard. That's hard.
I mean, you get out of a species, sure, like that, like whatever, because like you still have a
Yeah,
collection of something at home, but
right.
like
But if you just go
fully out,
cold turkey, it's like you maybe shouldn't have got into it in the first place,
that's what
or
I always say.
like that's uh, you know um MJ references it a lot in discussion, and the first time I heard it was coming from him, and the label COVID breeders, and it's so accurate, because you just
Yeah,
take it as a different time frame, and you just call it whatever it is at that time. Impulse breeders, investor breeders, whatever. They're the ones that they get in, they see a money grab, and if 3 years they haven't returned their investment, they're out. It's because they never loved it in the first place. And so COVID was a prime example of that.
timeline wise, I fit in the COVID breeder, but like I've been
But
keeping
you're
snakes for
going. You're still going.
Wait.
You're
Oh
still
yeah,
doing
of
your thing.
course. Of
Yeah.
course, yeah. But I've been into it since I'm 10 years old. So like
Yeah,
it's, it's been a long time
you didn't just
going.
learn of
Exactly.
snakes and discover them yesterday and decide, oh, I'm gonna do this. Yeah, it's the same with me. I didn't know there was this world, this hobby, this show circuit, all this stuff that's been going on until 2011, 12, something like
Yeah.
that. I had no idea this world existed, but I've been
Yeah.
keeping snakes and reptiles. I've been working with them professionally at that point. Like, just had no idea.
Yep.
So
For sure.
it's not about when you got into them, it's about why you got into them. And then it's okay to admit when you got to pivot and change, and maybe something didn't work out, or maybe you'll come back to it later. I think just being honest about it is the best policy, because you just don't want the animals to get slided along the way.
Yeah, 100%. Cool, man. Kind of my last wrap up question before we finish up is, so dialing all the way back to Colubrids,
Hmm.
what is kind of your elevator pitch to someone who has never kept a colubrid or never kept a snake before, for like why colubrids?
Colubrids, man, they're some of the best. I sell more colubrids than anything at the shop. You know, they're very hardy. They're very personable 99% of the time. King snakes, corn snakes, a lot of, hognose, a lot of those animals, they make excellent pets, like across the board. Pretty inquisitive, pretty active, pretty mellow to handle. Little kids, adults, everybody in between can find something for them in that speed and that color palette. And then the sticker price isn't huge for the majority of corns and your basic hogs. So it's not very prohibitive as far as like getting into them. And then when somebody's first getting into them, you don't want to dive into the deep end of reptiles. So snakes, in my opinion, are some of the more lower maintenance animals you can start with,
Yeah.
as far as their upkeep, their dietary requirements, things like that, within reason. And so oftentimes corns and kings are what I promote for people's, first pet snakes in the shop, because yeah, they're affordable, they're pretty mellow, they don't get huge, they're easy to feed. You can keep them on mice their entire lives, so you don't even have to step into the expensive world of rats. Like,
Yeah.
if you're talking to a parent who has to approve of this for the kid, that's the one who's enthusiastic about it. You got to think about them as well, ultimately. So, size is manageable, diet's manageable, husbandry is manageable, cost is manageable, behavior is engaging, and sometimes, a lot of fun. And then you have that added layer of, like, think of all the different colors they come in. I mean, it's it's about as diverse as like having a sneaker collection. So I think, the majority of those commonly available colubrids in the hobby should be promoted as gateway or lifer pets for
Yeah.
for people, because they're just fantastic. I mean, literally any keeper of all expertise level and experience level can find something for them, and they're fun. There's something for everybody, for sure.
Yeah. 100%. Well, Riley, this has been a fantastic just over 2 hours. There's been about, well, there's 16 likes, which means there were probably 20 plus people here. So
Hell yeah.
some good turnout. What do you have to say to everyone who checked it out live, checking out the replay and all that stuff?
Make sure you subscribe to Meteoric Serpents, for sure. For one, you gotta
And
subscribe to this
subscribe to Riley's
channel.
Reptiles.
Yeah, if you want more of this, Joe's got a good show going, good platform under a good network with a lot more to come. So if you liked it, definitely subscribe to it. And yeah, thank you for tuning in. Thank you for listening and having an open mind. If any of this was new to you, and if anybody has any interest in carpet pythons, if you've never really heard them talked about, or any of the colubrids we talked about, like the red zeps or bad hogs or, cribos, anything, feel free to reach out. I'm pretty reachable. I'm an open book, and
Yeah, and by the way, Riley's a link to Riley's Instagram is in the description of the
oh,
video,
rad.
so go hit that and go give him a follow on Instagram and all that stuff. Go check out his website for sure. I should have put that in the description too. I will after the fact.
It's super easy. Riley's Reptiles on pretty much
Yeah,
everything.
yeah,
Yeah, yeah. I'm easy to reach, and if not, you could probably find somebody who knows me. So, but yeah, I really like being a resource for people in the carpet python world of things. It's an honor, honestly. Sometimes I don't feel like I deserve, because there's so many people I consider smarter than me on like these projects. But I'm happy to be people's gateway into it if that's the case. And it's all for the love of these animals and keeping them and having a good time in the community. So I can't say a bad thing about it, and I'm just all for it. So
Hell yeah.
yeah.
All right, man. Well, another great episode. Thank you again so much for being here. That's a wrap for us. I'm going to throw you backstage, run the outro. If you want to hang out, we'll talk after for a couple minutes.
Sounds good, bro. Thank you.
All right. Thanks. Well, guys, what another great episode of the Colubrid Corruption Podcast. I hope you all enjoyed tonight. I thought it was a very insightful episode, especially having Riley on. Like I said, he's just a very intelligent guy, super passionate about his animals. So, even though his Colubrid collection isn't super vast, I still think he's a great person that could talk about all things reptiles, and I've been enjoying hearing a little more Morelia talk in general. Definitely been taking a liking to some of those animals. So it was cool to hear all of that. Yeah, guys. So as usual, make sure you hit like and subscribe to the channel. Hit a like on today's video and hit that subscribe button. Again, we're chasing that 1,000 subscribers, almost there. Go follow us on Instagram. We are at like 1,550 followers, which is awesome. Just been gaining new followers all the time. Also, Facebook. All my posts go straight to Facebook. Morph Market if you want some available animals. Just a couple on there right now. Also, first link in the description does have the Meteoric Serpents Patreon. Again, that's your way. You could say, a little way of saying thanks for doing the show, or if you just want to support me. Also, community building, talking all things Colubrids and get a little more behind the scenes of what goes on here with me at Meteoric Serpents. Otherwise, guys, I hope you all have a great rest of your night. Have a great week this week. And again, this was episode number 28 of the Colubrid Corruption Podcast. We had on Riley Jimison of Riley's Reptiles. Thank you all so much. See you next week. Peace.